Hello and welcome to this week's episode. This is episode 123. And today I'm going to talk all about how to run track workouts on the track. I'm so excited for this conversation. I know we're kind of in this time frame of running speed, right? We might not be totally ready to dive into our fall training plan yet. We could be kind of in between seasons. It could just be a few weeks long. In my case, it's going to be 3 months of working on getting faster at all of that top end speed. So I'll be on the track probably twice a week for the next few months. And chances are you may be working on the speed component in your training to get faster overall. There's going to be some point, I think, where you get to take a workout to the track if you have a track open and available to you. I know that's a huge piece to all of this. I coach athletes who don't have necessarily the facilities to use, and that's okay. But if you are someone who has short speed workouts that are written for the track and you've been taking them to the road, that's okay. I actually did that in my first training cycle for CIM. I had a lot of shorter stuff early on in my training cycle, and I would just run it on the road because I didn't have access to a track. Tracks weren't open at 5 a.m. when I was running. This was 2019 pre-pandemic. I know things have changed since then in Denver. I know there's a lot of tracks open. Or maybe I just didn't feel comfortable enough to go to the track by myself and didn't have enough time to go to the track. There's so many things that can come up, right? But if you get an opportunity to run on a track, I think it's highly, highly beneficial. Running on the road is also great because if you're running speed and you're hitting speed times and you're running on various terrains, right, you kind of want to pick like the flattest road possible. But what if there's a little bit of an up or a little bit of a down? Like you're going to be a lot stronger because of that, which is really exciting and really cool. But the track lends itself to really help, I think, with pacing. It's a huge helper in pacing. It can be a really great place to practice focusing and focusing on your running form and your breathing and where you are in the interval, especially if you are running intervals longer than one lap. It can be a really great opportunity to see how are you running each lap. Is it a consistent pace? Do you notice that it takes a while to warm up into the interval? Do you notice that you go out too hot and by the first half lap, you're like wondering when the rep is over? Or do you notice that maybe 3/4 of the way through the interval, you're slowing down only to speed up again and then execute your split and run your split? So I definitely fall in that category of, let's say I'm running a mile, which is 4 laps on a track, or roughly 4 laps on a track. I should say 1,600 meters, which is 4 laps on a track. The third lap is always slower. And if I'm intentional about it, if I'm not intentional about it, it's always slower, and it's like a mindset thing. And it's really interesting to know that that happens and to flow through it and get through it. I think it's kind of like that no man's land of, gosh, you're at 3/4 of the way. Well, it starts at the halfway mark, right? You're halfway through the mile. You have a half mile to go. It could be getting harder depending on what you're running, and you still have 2 full laps to go. So that's where I fall. It'd be really interesting to know where you fall. Before we dive into all of this today, I do want to share an elevated moment from Michelle. And Michelle's elevated moment comes from being able to take time away to go to, she lives in Denver. She was able to go to the Western Slope with her husband and have a great time running and biking and just being immersed in the beauty of Colorado without work and probably without cell service some of the time, but she had a great week. And I love that so much because we may or may not be traveling. We may or may not be taking time for ourselves during the week or weekends or at night. There might always be that constant pull. I think a lot of you could probably relate to that or understand what that is. And Michelle took some very dedicated focus time to not have that pull and to really soak in everything that she and her husband wanted to soak in and have a lot of fun in the process. So I love that so much. And she still got her training in. I coached Michelle, so it was nice to see that too. All right, so let's dive into this week's episode. I briefly talked about kind of a little bit about the track, but the track is designed more for speed workouts. So that could mean a 1 mile, 5K, speed workouts, 100s, 200s, 300s, 400 meters, VO2 max workouts. These are the workouts that are truly designed for the track. And these speed workouts are going to be that extra gear that we need to develop our times and develop our running form and develop our running, not our running economy, but our high VO2 max. The speed workouts are the workouts that are going to be designed to kind of get that extra gear. We're going to develop a lot of speed when we go to the track, and we're going to develop a really strong running form, and we're going to develop a really strong lungs, which is a cool piece to all of this. And it may take a while to develop, especially if you are someone who's been marathoning and you're in your marathon era and you're just marathon after marathon after marathon. If you don't have some of these workouts in your marathon plan, which they aren't, oh gosh, arguably they could or could not be there. They're not totally necessary for the marathon. Is it good to have in the plan? Yes. But it all depends on the athlete and where they are and what they're looking to do and where they're coming from. And there's so many different factors that go into this. But it is a really cool place to be on the track in the Oval Office. So if you can, maybe take a look at your next 12 months of training. What does the next 12 months of training look like? Do you have another marathon coming up? Do you have some downtime in between cycles? Maybe instead of going into a base phase or not running, which I know happens, go into a speed cycle, go into a speed training prep, and maybe you could train for a 5K or a mile distance. There's so many mile races in Colorado this summer. It's going to be a lot of fun to see who shows up, who's doing what. I may be jumping into some, who knows? But it's such a great way to kind of mix up not just the training. You're not running quite as many miles. You're definitely high, like up leveling the intensity. You're running a ton of intensity. So it's a very different type of training, and it can really get us marathoners, or even I say half marathoners, out of our comfort zone and really push us into the uncomfortable parts of training. So let's dive into the track itself. So I mentioned this earlier in my CIM prep, my first CIM prep, that track hours are kind of a big deal, right? There's probably going to be a sign posted outside on a gate somewhere about proper running hours. And this could mean that you can run in the morning or at night, but not during school hours as listed below. I know in Boulder, we have different hours for different days of the week. So I go to the track and have track workouts on Wednesdays. And we love that because Wednesdays are a later start for Boulder County. So we're able to use the track for a longer morning session. If you follow, you probably don't know this, but my track workouts take 2.5, it's about 2.5 hours out of my morning for sure. Every Wednesday. By the time I start, we warm up and we do our stretches as a team. We do drills as a team. We do strides as a team. There's a lot of talking. We do our reps. I have a lot of reps on the track, and then I usually have a long cool down. So I might get back to my car around 2.5 hours later. Isn't that wild? It's so wild. So understanding the hours that the track is open to recreational runners is going to be huge. If the track is locked, oh gosh, I highly suggest not jumping the fence and running on the track because clearly the school is asking to not use the track, right? It's closed, and there could be a very specific reason that it's closed. But you do you. My next piece of advice is to keep your head on a swivel. So the track is an interesting place to run because there are typically 6 or 8 lanes um, where anyone could be running anything. Typically, when you're running on a track, you are running counterclockwise on the track. But again, take a look at those track hours and just see, are there certain days where you are running counterclockwise? Are there certain days that you're running clockwise? That might be more of like an inside track type of thing, like inside of a gym, inside of like a rec center or something like that, but just understand what you're getting yourself into. And you want to make sure that your head is on a swivel because one, some people, most people who are running speed, they're just running fast, right? So they could come up behind you pretty quickly if you're just standing around. If you are standing, maybe waiting for your next rep or you're waiting for a friend, stand to the side, inside of the track, kind of where if there's a football field, you're standing kind of in that end zone area. That's a great place to wait until your next rep starts because you're out of the way and you're out of the way for everyone. Because if you're warming up and cooling down on a track, you get to run the opposite way of those who are running speed workouts. So if you're running a speed workout counterclockwise, then your warm up and cool down can be counterclockwise or I'm sorry, clockwise, but on the outside lanes. And that's going to be really important. So you're running against traffic, right? And you're running on the outside lanes. So that could be the last 2 or 3 lanes. So it could be lanes 5 and 6 on a 6-lane track. It could be lanes 7 or 8 on an 8-lane track. And understanding that you're warming up, you're cooling down, you can still be part of the community, but you're definitely not in the way of endangering yourself or endangering someone else who is running a hot workout, right? So having that head on a swivel is key. This morning I got to run some 200s and it was a 200-meter jog, which is half of a track, with a 200-meter sprint, the other half of the track. But there was another group running on the track. And this is, it's the track club in Boulder. They're a very fast team. It was really fun to be out there with them today. It wasn't my normal track day. And I know a few people on the team, so it was like good vibes. It was so fun, but they are fast. And like when I say fast, I'm saying my 200-meter sprint is like their tempo effort. So I'm running about a 5:15, a 5:20 in my 200s. And that is like tempo. And we were either holding together or they were passing me, which was a lot of fun. But I really had to stay focused on what I was doing because I knew as soon as my 200-meter sprint was over, I needed to quickly look behind me on the right side, my right shoulder, to make sure no one else was in my lane so I could skip over to lane 2 and then start my jogging recovery effort for half a lap. So that is what we mean about head on a swivel, really being intentional and understanding what's going on around you, who's running on the track, are they faster, and just making sure that you're also staying safe. So each lap is 400 meters or roughly 0.25 miles. 4 laps equals 1,600 meters. But 1,600 meters does not equal a mile, which is why I said roughly 0.25 miles or roughly a quarter mile. It's actually just slightly over a mile. So if the light bulb is going off right now, you might be saying to yourself, Coach Sarah, that is why my watch, which is set on auto lap, when I run a mile, buzzes, and I'm still about 5 steps away from the 1,600-meter line or completing 4 full laps. And that is accurate. So you could take your mile time, right, of let's say it comes in at 7:30 on the dot, or you could take your 1,600-meter time that is maybe at 7:34. Could be about 3 to 4 seconds more than what actually comes through on the watch. It's wild, but that's the way that it's set up. So the workout portion is always in lane 1. You want to hug that left white line running counterclockwise on the inside lane. And I think this is really important. And what I noticed today, being on the track with the track club, different group than I'm training with, totally different group than I coach. Every single person on that team, I think there were about 14 or 15 runners, they were running on the white line. And when I saw that during my strides, I thought, I get to run on that white line today, because sometimes I'll stray a little bit or I won't hug it as tight as I should. And I think we can all maybe find ourselves there. Or maybe you're thinking, oh, wow, I run on that thin white line on the right side of lane 1. You want to be on the left side because it's going to be the closest tangent back to the start line, right? It's the closest. It's kind of like that yellow brick road. Like if you run on that white line, it's the shortest amount of time, especially when you're running fast. If you're running 200s, 400s, that all makes a difference if you're running that white line or if you're taking turns wide. It's going to add on time, right? So you want to hug that white line to the left. And this is going to be helpful because, one, it's going to be like the shortest route back to the start line, but it's also going to help. So I got passed today, right? I get passed every single week on the track, right? I think most people do. It's just kind of the nature of the track. And you want to make sure that you are staying left in addition to what I just mentioned, but also because the runner coming up behind you also wants the shortest path back to the start line, and they don't want to exert a lot of energy to have to go into lane 2 or lane 3 to pass you, especially if it's on one of the turns. That's going to be a lot longer to get back to that start line. So they want to pass you on the right side, as close to you as they can probably get, and pass you, maybe exchange a nice work, good luck, good job sort of comment, and keep going, right? So staying to the left is going to keep you safe. It's going to keep the other runners safe. And it's a great way to set everyone up for success. Now, you might be that runner that is passing someone on the track, and that's going to happen too. And you always want to pass on the right side, right? So if you're a runner, you're running in lane 1, you're running on that left white line, and then all of a sudden you are now the runner who's passing, you're going to be in lane 1 on the right side, closer to that thinner white line to pass the person. I would suggest, and not everyone knows how, like, track etiquette, right? So, like, oftentimes there's someone running in the outside of lane 1. What do you do as a passer? You still pass that runner on the right. I think it can be very dangerous. I've actually done this because it was like, it just kind of happened and I needed to do it, where I passed someone on the left side. It's dangerous because they're not, I don't think people are expecting a left-hand pass. There's like usually a divot off the track into like the center part of the field, which could cause like an ankle roll. It could cause someone to trip. If you're passing and trip, you could pass or you could trip the other runners. So there's a lot going on. So always think about passing on the right. And that's going to set everyone up for success. All right, so let's talk about let's talk about your watch when you go to the track. there's a lot of different things that can happen with your watch. So when you're out running an easy run, when you're out running maybe a tempo run, you either might have your workout programmed, right, for that tempo run, where you can just start the workout, it tells you what to do, and everything just kind of like clicks along and you just follow along. That's great. Easy runs, you're probably not programming anything on your watch. And you might just have that manual lap turned on, or I'm sorry, the auto lap turned on for like the 1 mile, right? So you see your 1 mile splits. Okay, great. Well, when you get to the track, programming a workout doesn't work. The GPS isn't totally accurate when you program a workout. So my recommendation is either manually lapping your watch, which means that when you're at the starting point at the track and you start in lane 1, hugging that white line, and you start your watch, you're giving yourself about a 5-second run to the start line. You're then starting your rep when you hit the line in tandem with clicking the right bottom button on your watch. I'm pretty sure this is the same for Coros and Garmin. If you have an Apple Watch, I have absolutely no idea. I don't know. I have no idea. And that's going to start the new interval for that workout, or for that rep, I should say. So let's say, to keep things super easy, we're going to say you're running a 400-meter workout. What does that mean? That means that you're running 1 lap, which is 400 meters or almost 0.25 or a quarter mile at a time. And typically this is done at 5K effort or faster. Because it's so short, you can kind of go a little bit faster. You could do a standing or easy jog recovery in between. So if you are running a 400-meter rep, starting about 5 seconds out from that start line, start to jog, pick up your speed. So your speed is pretty close, if not right on the money. When you start and hit that line, hit the bottom right button on your watch to start the new lap. And then as you come through the finish line, which is really the start line because you're running 1 lap, you hit that same button again. And that is going to capture your 1 lap time. And it's awesome. And now your watch is running. Let's say you have a 90-second rest. Let's say you have a 60-second easy jog. Your watch is running. It could be tracking no time because you're standing. It could be tracking a very slow jog. When you're ready to go again, you hit the lap button again, and that's going to track your second interval. And this is a great way to capture your intervals on a track. This is actually the way that I recommend. I think it's the best way, because you are kind of in control of what you're doing with your watch, because I see it time and time and time again. Runners don't program their watch the right way, or they have no idea where they are or what they're doing. And they're just like, oh, but this is programmed, but I don't really know what I'm doing. So like if you are taking control of manually lapping your watch, you probably know your workout, right? So I memorize my workouts. I usually know like what I'm doing going into a workout, and I bring my phone with me just in case I need a refresh of like times or paces or whatever, just to have that available. You could also like write it down on a sticky note. You could write it on your hand. Like there's different ways to bring the workout with you so that you can manually lap and be totally okay. So the other way that you can program a workout is when you go out for your warm up, log it like a normal run, save it, and then start track mode on your watch. And then that should pick up the track a little bit better than just being out there on just a normal run. And then you can save that workout when it's finished. So you had programmed the workout, you're in track mode. You may or may not want to use the manual laps depending if you programmed it. You save it when your workout's finished, and then you start a new run for your cool down. So that means there's 3 entries that you're looking at. You have a warm up, you have a workout, you have a cool down. I know from like the coaching side of things, I don't love to see that. I love to see one workout. I want to see everything together. So I'm not like clicking, closing, clicking, closing, clicking, closing for one workout. I can just see everything together. It's much easier on the coaching side. And even on the athlete side, I don't do that. I still manually lap my watch. And it's just good practice to be like focused on what you're doing and what you're out to accomplish that day. So where exactly do you start? I've been talking about this start line and this finish line, which if you're running a 400 meter is the same line, but there are different segments of the track, right? Because it's a 400-meter track, the track is outlined in 100-meter chunks. So there's a 100-meter line, a 200, a 300, and then the 400-meter line, which is also the start and finish line. So if you're, I guess the best way to describe this is if you're standing, you could be standing at the 50-yard line, you could be sitting in the stands at the 50-yard line. It's a home game. So you're looking at the track. There are 2 straightaways on a track. There are 2 curves. Okay. The home stretch is going to be the straightaway closest to you because it's home, right? The back stretch is going to be the other straightaway furthest from you. The curve nearest to you or nearest to the start is going to be the near turn. And then the curve that is further from you, more by like that 300-meter line, is going to be the far turn. So the 100 meters are straightaways. That's 100 meters. Nice straightaway. You're running counterclockwise. The 200 meter, you start at the far turn and run 200 meters or half a lap back to that finish line. Today, I had to reverse it because we've had a lot of wind in Boulder, and I would have been running straight into headwind. So I think that that's something that maybe isn't talked about enough, but you can shift and pivot based on what you need to set yourself up for success in that workout. So if you're running 200-meter sprints and you're running into the wind, maybe take that part as the jog and take the second half of the track as your 200-meter sprints. Thankfully, everyone else who was running on the track was following suit, and we were all kind of running a little bit funny and starting our 200s at a different spot that we normally do just to avoid the headwinds as much as we could. I still got it on the turn, but it was better than having it for the full straightaway, in my opinion. So that's fun. So how we talked about how to remember your workout, right? Write it down, bring your phone, take a look at the app, memorize your workout, understand the paces and why you're running it. I think memorizing the workout is awesome because there's going to be an educational aspect to it because it's not just memorizing numbers. Maybe it is, but I always take a look at my workout, and the way I memorize it is by telling myself what I'm running. All right, the 400s start at, let's say 10K and cut down to 5K and then get a little bit faster. Understanding the paces and why you're running it, I think, is a big piece to it, right? And that's a cool place to be. How do you remember the number of reps? Ooh, I question myself every single week because my coach is usually with me on the track, but she's coaching a dozen other people. And it's not really her job to remember the number of reps I'm running, right? Like that's my job as a runner. And every single week, I usually can do a good job because I usually have a progression. And I think when you're running progression, it's a bit easier to say, okay, yeah, I got the 96s, I got the 94s, I got the 92s, which is seconds for 400s. It's easier when it's a progression. If you were to have a workout where it's all the same pace for the same number of reps, I think that can get harder. I think bringing maybe like a pen and a paper and just creating a numbers chart of how many reps have I completed, I think that's a great way to do it. Obviously, if you're over under 1 rep, that's okay, right? It's just doing the best that you can do. But we all know that running math is hard, especially when we're running and figuring out like where we are in the number of reps. Like it happens, especially when sometimes I'm running like 12 or 16 reps of something. So it can get hard. I think once it goes over 10, what I do is I cut it in half. So I focus on just the first 6. If I have 12 or if I have 16, it's going to be the first 8. And then once I finish and get halfway through, I reset. Say, okay, we have 6 more or we have 8 more. And that's an easier way to kind of work through those higher reps. One thing that I don't think is talked a lot on the track is running on time. Like I was just talking about 96s, 94s versus pace, because pace isn't always going to be accurate. So if you know for a 400-meter rep, you want to run 7-minute mile pace, that's going to be 1 minute and 45 seconds. Instead of trying to find that pace on the track, because of the GPS, because of the issues that we talked about before, it's not going to track right. So if you can run on time, that's going to give you a better indication of how close you are to that actual pace. So if 145 seems daunting or whatever that interval time is, I break it down into, if it's a longer interval, I'll break it down into 400 meter. So I'll say, okay, I need to run a 400 meter in X amount of time to hit this pace for a 1K. If you're running a 400 meter and you think, gosh, I really want to execute this and be right on the money, you could break it down in 100 meters or the 200-meter mark. It really keeps you focused and on it if you're looking at your watch every 100 meters. Let's say you are running that 7-minute mile, it's a 145 for 100. That would be, this isn't my normal 400. So if you're watching the video right now, I have my hand on my head. What would that be for every 200? That would be 52, 53. And then you can cut that in half one more time for your 100 meter. And that's a great way to hit the nail on the head in terms of the rep. Bonus points, it helps you pace. And if you can start, like everyone that I coach, they will get in the first month, if we're targeting speed, there's always it depends. But typically I'll prescribe a 400-meter workout because to me, it shows a lot of other things under the surface than just the face value of that workout or what that athlete might think that workout is. It shows a lot about pacing. It shows a lot about focus. I can see the recovery time, how they approach that, if they start too soon, if they take more. It all tells a story, and it's a really cool place as a coach to see that and to help elevate them to what they need to work on, because it does kind of show a lot there that needs to be worked on, but that also is like really strong too, which is really fun. The other part about the track is that you get to wear different shoes, which is fun, unless you forget your fast shoes, which I almost did this morning. Not fun, right? So you want to have lighter shoes for the track. It's going to give you more energy return, and you're going to have just a nice pop on the track, which is great because you're going to be running fast. So I really highly recommend having a shoe rotation if that's something that you can afford, if that works with your budget. You can wear a trainer for your warm up, your stretching, your drills, and then before the strides change into that track workout. So it's going to be that lighter shoe. Every shoe brand has, a variety of easy trainer shoes. They have like the tempo shoe, they have a track shoe, they have a race shoe. And if you're not sure what type of shoe to get, contact your local running store. They will totally be able to help you, especially if there's a certain brand that you like to work with. But I definitely recommend changing shoes into something lighter, start your strides, and then change and run your workout and then change back into your trainers for the cool down. I think that's a great practice because you save a little bit of miles on the faster shoe, and you're able to run strong on the track. Now, this shoe could be a race shoe. It doesn't have to be. I use like retired race shoes. So I do wear Alpha Flies on the track. It's something that my coach has really wanted everyone that she coaches to use, or a shoe like that, because we're running at altitude and we're still running the same workouts that everyone at lower elevation is. It kind of gives us a little bit of an extra pop, but I'll wear like a retired race shoe. So does it really give me an extra pop? I honestly don't think it does. Um, there was a day last year where all summer long I was wearing the same retired Alpha Fly, and then we changed track locations, and I get to run my warm up to the track now, which is very cool if I choose to do that. And then I can run my cool down home. It's a little bit of a logistics thing with like bringing another pair of shoes and bringing your water bottle and bringing gels and all the stuff. This day I decided to run, and I'm like, I'm just going to run and wear my fast shoe, my track shoe, so I don't have to bring an extra pair of shoes. I'm so smart. This is great. Turns out I started running on the road or on the bike path with this shoe, and it was like a dead shoe. I had zero in this shoe, and I had no idea because the track is a little more forgiving. And so I ended up using that shoe for the workout because I didn't have time to go home and like figure out what shoe I was going to wear, and then ended up changing shoes thereafter. But I think it's interesting to kind of see that difference and to also, be aware, I think, of when shoes are really ready to retire. All right, so that's all the advice I have on how to run a track workout, how to run strong. I think the most important thing is showing up confident, showing up and giving it your best, giving it your all. And I know it can be intimidating. I know it can feel scary, especially if there are faster people on the track. But in my experience, people are usually very nice, very understanding if something were to happen. And we're all out there to encourage each other to just run strong. And what that looks like for each of us is going to be different. All right, my top 3 reasons why speed workouts help long distance runners, and why should speed be a summer focus for distance runners. I think if you're looking to get stronger and faster, all right, so that is this week's episode, all on track etiquette, best practices for running on the track. And if you have any questions about this, highly recommend reaching out, and I'd be happy to answer them. If you are a runner in Denver and want to learn more about track workouts, the right recovery periods, and the paces to be running intervals while taking the guesswork out of your training, the Elevate Summer Track Club is taking new runners. So our new season begins in a few weeks. On June 12th, we meet every Wednesday. This season, I believe, is 18 weeks. We go through October 9th, which leads us right into Chicago Marathon weekend. And we're going to meet at Denver South for track workouts. Our tempo is going to be taken in the park, and it's a lot of fun. We have an incredible group this season. I'd love to have you part of it. If you'd like more information on this, feel free to reach out over Instagram at Elevate Your Running or at Sarah, SAYRAH, Runs Happy, or through elevateyourrunning.com. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening this week. I appreciate you so much, and I hope you have a beautiful week.